Have you ever wondered why the harder you try to fix everything, the worse it feels? Sometimes peace doesn't come from doing more, but from releasing control. And when you stop holding on so tightly, something unexpected begins to rise. Clarity. Type this in the comments. I choose presence over control. Let's begin. There's a strange thing that happens. When we stop trying to force life into a perfect shape, suddenly it starts flowing again. You spend years believing success, love, or peace must be chased, wrestled into place, or earned through endless effort. But what if the very act of clinging is what creates resistance? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, believed that control is the ego's favorite illusion, and that true transformation begins when we loosen our grip. Jung taught that what we chase usually runs from us. The more we try to control how things should be, the more we suffer when they don't match our script. We think attachment means security, but often it becomes the chains that hold us hostage to expectation. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means giving space for something deeper to take shape. Jung didn't define detachment as cold or emotionless. He saw it as a necessary inner shift, the moment when our ego stops projecting onto the world and starts listening to what's truly within. In relationships, at work, or even in our private thoughts, this shift is everything. As long as we tie our identity to outcomes, success, recognition, or someone else's validation, we walk through life in quiet fear. The fear of failure, of being unseen, of not being enough. This is where anxiety is born. Not because life is chaotic, but because our ego can't tolerate uncertainty. Jung pointed out that this tension is the ego trying to hold on to a fantasy that life must always go as planned. But life is not meant to be controlled. It's meant to be experienced. Letting go isn't falling into a void. It's the opening of a door. When we stop forcing things, when we stop trying to impress or predict or push through, life has room to breathe. Opportunities arise without chasing. Clarity returns. What felt like chaos becomes rhythm. Jung saw this not as surrender to fate, but as cooperation with a wiser force within the self. Not the surface-level me that plays roles, but the deeper awareness that knows when to act and when to wait. And here's where things get even more real. Often, our strongest attachments aren't to people or goals, but to projections. We don't just fall in love with someone. We project onto them the qualities we've lost in ourselves. Safety, salvation, meaning. Jung warned that this is where attachment turns toxic. We don't see people for who they are. We see what we want them to be. And when they fail to fit that mold, we suffer. Not because they changed, but because our illusion cracked. The ego, hungry for control, tries to possess anything that offers comfort, status, relationships, attention. But it's rarely the thing we truly want. It's what we've placed on top of it. Love turns into emotional dependency. Ambition becomes obsession. Underneath every craving is often a quiet fear that without these things, we are not enough. But the moment we start noticing these projections, the spell starts to break. The person we once idolized becomes simply another human, and we begin to meet ourselves. Not the mask, but the parts we had buried. When those projections fall apart, the ego panics. It scrambles to regain control, thinking that if it can just fix the external world, the discomfort inside will go away. But the discomfort isn't out there. It's within, and no amount of controlling others, planning every detail, or perfecting our image can fix what we've abandoned inside ourselves. Jung drew a sharp distinction between having direction and being obsessed with control. One flows from self-alignment. The other is rooted in fear, a desperate attempt to avoid what we're afraid to feel. Control, Jung believed, is not strength. It's a distraction. When we micromanage our lives, we're often trying to escape real vulnerability. We hide behind routines, strategies, and plans because facing the unknown feels unbearable. But in doing so, we don't just shut out uncertainty, we shut out life itself. The more we control, the more disconnected we feel. Life becomes mechanical. Relationships lose depth. Our energy fades. It's not weakness, it's exhaustion from trying to be someone we're not. The turning point comes when that exhaustion becomes undeniable. The ego starts to collapse, not with drama, but with quiet surrender. It's in these moments of burnout, heartbreak, or identity crisis that something deeper begins to stir. Jung called this emergence the self, a quieter, truer part of us that has been waiting all along. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand, it simply invites us to drop the mask, to stop performing, and to begin listening. And from that listening, something profound happens. We remember who we are when we're not trying to be anything. That process is called individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole by integrating all parts of ourselves, even the ones we once rejected. The shadow, the mask, the fear, the longing, they're all part of us. And the only way to stop being ruled by them is to face them with honesty. Jung believed that true transformation begins not with change, but with awareness. You don't fix the shadow by pretending it isn't there. You meet it, understand it, and let it teach you. In love, this shows up clearly. Many relationships begin as projection. We don't see the other, we see what we hope to find. But over time, the mask wears off. If we're mature enough, we let in. That's when true connection begins. Not when we need someone to complete us, but when we are whole enough to meet them as they are. Love that clings is fear. Love that flows is freedom. And detachment isn't about indifference. It's about loving from a place of presence, not possession. As the mask begins to dissolve, grief may rise, not just for who we lost, but for who we never really were. Jung understood this as symbolic death, letting go of the idea, the role, the story that no longer fits, mourning what didn't happen, facing the empty space left behind. But in that emptiness, something extraordinary begins to grow. Not immediately, not loudly, but quietly, like the first breath after years of holding it in, like sunlight falling through a window you forgot to open. This is the creative power of detachment. The energy, once used to perform, to chase, to control, it comes back to you, and now it can be used to create, to choose, to live, not reactively, but consciously, not to impress, but to express. This is when intuition returns, when you begin to feel what's right, instead of overthinking it, when ideas show up without being forced, when life stops being a performance and starts becoming a conversation between your soul and the world. Carl Jung knew that healing doesn't come by force. It comes by surrender. It comes when we stop running from what is and start listening to it. Detachment, in its highest form, is not escape. It's integration. It's making peace with what happened, letting go of what no longer fits, and trusting that whatever comes next will meet you at the level of your truth. So ask yourself now, what are you still clinging to that no longer serves your growth? What identity, what relationship, what belief are you holding just because you're afraid of the silence that would follow? Let it go, not because it's easy, but because on the other side of that release, there's space. And in that space, your real life can begin. If this message touched something in you, don't just watch and scroll. Drop this in the comments. Can I choose presence over control? And if you want more reflections like this on Jung, detachment, shadow work, and self-awareness, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join this journey of conscious living. See you in the next one.